Okay, this is the homework for solving rational equations. Now, in your notes, you have the steps of what you should be doing. The first thing you want to do is factor the denominators for each fraction, find the least common denominator for both sides, multiply the numerator and the denominator for each fraction to make each denominator the same. Once all the denominators are the same, set up the equation using the numerator only of the fraction and then solve. And then you also, once you've solved for your variable, you want to make sure you plug in the solution to be sure that you don't have any extraneous solutions. Okay, so those are the steps. So let's look at the first one on your homework. All right, so the first thing is to factor my denominators. There's nothing to factor, so I want to find the least common denominator. The least common denominator is going to be 6. So if I look here, 3 and 2, I don't have anything in common, so I know that I can make 6 the denominator for everything. Now, so the least common denominator is 6. Now you got to figure out how to make each of the denominators 6. And you have to look to see what can I multiply times 3 to get 6. Well, I can multiply 2 times 3 to get 6, but if I do that to the denominator, I have to do it to the numerator. What can I multiply times 2 to get 6? 3. Same thing. And then remember, you also have to do that over here. What can I multiply? Remember, now this is a whole number, so my denominator is 1 here. What can I multiply times that 1 to get 6, which is 6. So that's going to be 6 over 6. Okay. So again, the first step is to find the least common denominator. So I have 3 times 2, which is 6 in my denominator, and 2 times x, which is 2x, plus 2 times 3, which is 6, and then 3 times x, which is 3x, equals 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 10 is 60. Okay, once I have all the denominators the same, I'm going to use just the numerators to solve for my variable. So I have 2x plus 3x equals 6. 2x plus 3x, equals 60. 2x plus 3x equals 5x equals 60, divided by 5, x equals 12. Okay, number 2 you should be able to do on your own. Let's go ahead and look at number 3. Now this one you're not adding anything. Like up here we had x over 3 plus x over 2. And that equaled something. This one here, I just have 2x minus 1 over x plus 3 equals 5 over 3. But the steps are still the same. We want to find a least common denominator. There's nothing to factor. You should check that first and then find the least common denominator. So if I look over here, okay, so I have x plus 3 and then I have 3. Well, I need to multiply a 3 on this side. And then over here, I need to multiply x plus 3. That's how I get the least common denominator of 3 times x plus 3. Okay. A common mistake here would be, oh, I can just add the x over here. Then I'd have x plus 3 and x plus 3. You can't do that. You actually have to multiply something to get the least common denominator. You can't just add something to the bottom. It doesn't work that way. But remember, if we do that to the denominator, I'm going to do that to the numerator on both sides. So on the top, I have 3 times 2x minus 1 over 3 times x plus 3 equals 5 times x plus 3 over 3 times x plus 3. I have the denominator as the same, so I'm good to go. I'm going to set the numerator equal to each other and solve. Okay, so at this point, your steps in order to solve would be to distribute, collect like terms if there are any. So I've got 6x minus 3 equals 5x plus 15. Okay, I'm going to get all my x's on one side. So it gives me x minus 3 equals 5 plus 3 plus 3, x equals 8. Oh, 18, right? That's 15. All right. So x equals 18, and then you want to look back up here. If I substitute 18 into my denominator, 18 plus 3, that's going to be 21. So that does not equal 0. So there are no extraneous solutions. You're good to go. Okay, you should be able to do number 4. Let's keep going, see if we've got any harder ones. All right, 5 and 6, same thing, finding the least common denominator and then solving the numerator. Let's take a look at number 7. Well, 7's a little more complicated because I have this minus 1. So the only thing you need to be careful here is making sure that you turn this into a fraction so you don't forget that minus 1. So that's going to be minus 1 over 1. And then look at to see what the common denominator is going to be, and that's going to be x minus 8. So my least common denominator is x minus 8. And notice that I already have an x minus 8 from my first expression, minus 1 over x minus 8. Because if I multiply the denominator times x minus 8, I have to multiply the numerator times x minus 8 equals 7 over x minus 8. We're going to solve the top. Be very careful. This is a subtraction sign, so 1 minus x minus 8 equals 7. I'm going to distribute the negative because I don't want to have to forget. 1 minus x plus 8 equals 7. All right, so then we're going to collect like terms. So that's negative x plus 9 equals 7. Subtract 9 from both sides. Negative x equals negative 2. I can't have that x negative, so I'm going to divide by negative 1. So then that's going to be x equals 2. If I substitute that into this denominator, 2 minus 8, that doesn't equal 0, so there are no extraneous solutions for that one. Okay, number 8 you should be able to do. Number 9 is a multiple choice, so I'll go ahead and let you do that one as well. All right, let's take a look at this one. Remember that the first step is to factor first, and we haven't had to do that, but this one we need to factor first. So let's take a look at this. Each denominator, to factor this first denominator, I can factor out a 2. So that's going to give me 2 times x plus 1. And this x squared minus 1 is the difference of perfect squares, so I have x plus 1, x minus 1, and then I have here x minus 1, which I can't do anything. Kind of right here. All right, so if I look at each of these denominators, I know that my denominator, if I look to see what's missing, this one has a 2, but these don't have 2's, which means I need to multiply times 2. Okay, and then I have x plus 1 here. This has an x plus 1, but this doesn't have an x plus 1. So I'm going to multiply this one also times x plus 1. And then the next one, this has an x minus 1, but this one doesn't have an x minus 1. So we're going to multiply times x minus 1. That's what we're missing from that one. We're missing the 2 from this one, and this one already has an x minus 1. Okay, so all we're missing from this one is 2 times x plus 1. All right, so remember, if we do that to the denominator, we need to do it to the numerator. So here we have x minus 1 times 1, and then in the bottom we have 2 times x plus 1, x minus 1. Okay, the next one, I'm just missing the 2. So if I multiply the top times 2, I need to multiply, I'm sorry, the bottom times 2, I need to multiply the top times 2. So I have plus, remember on the bottom, I have 2 times x plus 1, x minus 1. So on the top, I have 2 times 5 equals, I started with x minus 1. but I need the 2 times x plus 1. So we're going to multiply this. So I have 2 times x plus 1 times x minus 1. But the denominator didn't have this piece right here, which means I also need to multiply the numerator times that, which will be 1 times 2 times x plus 1. Okay? So notice that now all my denominators match. So we're going to solve the numerators. So I have x plus 1. I'm sorry, x minus 1 times 1 is just x minus 1, plus 2 times 5 is 10, equals 1 times, and we're going to distribute this, 2x plus 2. Now collect like terms. Got this. So then I can do x plus 9 equals 2x plus 2. Let's see. I'm going to move it this way. You could solve it another way. 9 minus 2 is 7. X. So it's going to be x equals 7. I'm going to plug that in up here to my numerator. If I put 7 in here, that doesn't make the denominator 0. So x equals 7 is my answer, and there are no extraneous solutions. Now, I want to show you how to do this in the calculator to check to make sure that you've done it correctly. All right, so in the calculator, if you go into y equals, and you put your original equation, everything that's on this side of the equal sign, I'm going to put it in y1. Everything on this side of the equal sign, I'm going to put it into y2. So alpha y equals, have 1 over 2x plus 2. Again, this is my original equation. Plus alpha y equals 5 over x squared minus 1. Okay, so that was the left side of my equation, and then on the right side of the equation, I'm going to say alpha y equals 1 over x minus 1. Okay, left side of the equation is y1, right side of the equation is y2. I'm going to go into graph. Okay, so now that I'm in graph, I'm going to find the intersection of the function. Okay, so in the graph, you're looking for the intersection of these two, the left side and the right side of the equation. So I'm going to zoom in over here because it looks like this is where they intersect, and press enter. Okay, once I've zoomed into the intersection, then I'm going to go to second trace and see if I can find the intersection. The intersection is going, the x value, that's going to be your answer right there, which is 7. The other thing you could do is you could go into your table and you could scroll down to what you got as x, and then the y1 and the y2 should be the same answer. So if they are, then you know you've done it correctly. So that's kind of a way to check your answer. Let's go on to number 12. Okay, so notice that I need to factor this. So this is going to be x minus 2, x minus 4. So that's going to be my least common denominator. Notice here this has an x minus 2, but I'm missing an x minus 4. And here, x minus 4, I'm missing an x minus 2. Okay, but remember, if you multiply the denominator, you've got to do the same thing to the numerator. Okay, so I have x times x minus 4. On the bottom, I have x minus 4 times x minus 2, plus 1 times x minus 2 over x minus 4 times x minus 2 equals, I didn't have to do anything over here because this numerator was already x minus 4, x minus 2. So the top is just 2. All my denominators match, so I'm good to go. So I can solve the top. I'm going to distribute this. This is going to be x squared minus 4x plus x minus 2 equals 2. Collect like terms, so I have x squared minus 3x minus 2 equals 2. Subtract 2 from both sides. So then I have x squared minus 3x minus 4 equals 0. So in order to solve this, because I have a trinomial, I have to factor this again. So this is going to be x minus 4, x plus 1 equals 0. Set each of your factors equal to 0. So plus 4. So x equals 4 minus 1, x equals negative 1. If you plug this back up here, okay, x minus 1, if I put x minus 1 in any of these, and you can put it into your calculator if you don't see it, I'm not going to get 0, but if I put x equals 4, notice right here, if I put 4 minus 4, that's going to make my denominator 0. My denominator cannot be 0, which means 4 is an extraneous solution. So that's not a solution. X minus 4 is not a solution, but this one is. All right, let's check that in our calculator again like we did a second ago. All right, let's get rid of that. So we're putting the original function in, x over x minus 2 plus one over x minus 4. And then the other side of the equation, I'm going to put in 2 over x squared minus 6x plus 8. Okay, so we've got all that in there. And then we can go into our graph. Okay, here's our graph. Make sure you zoom 6 if it doesn't look like this. You do the intersection, second trace, number 5, enter, enter, enter. The x value is at negative 1, so we know that's the solution. Remember, again, you could always look at your table. We said negative 1 was our x value. Notice that my y1 and y2 are the same, which means that we've done it correctly. And that's it. You should be able to do the last one on your own.